All right, the first part of this video is learning how to grid our image. And I have a ruler here along with my black and white 5x7 photograph. It has a good range of black and white along with at least 5 shades of gray. And I'm going to start by gridding my picture at 1/2 inch marks. And I'm going to line up the edge of my ruler to the edge of my image. Make sure that you're paying attention to your ruler. Sometimes they have a little extra space here and you don't want to add that to one of your inches. It'll make your grid off. So I'm going to line it up and I'm going to make a mark at every 1/2 inch point with my pencil. And the reason for the 1/2 inch grid is so that I have a good level of detail. Breaking it down into smaller parts makes it easier to draw. I'm going to slide my ruler down and I need to make a second set of marks. And this is because if I don't have 2 dots between which to draw my line, it will not be straight. You should have a total of 14 spaces along the top here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it and I'm going to line up my ruler along those 2 points. And I'm going to draw a straight line all the way through my image. Again, this is why it's important to have your lines, 2 lines to go between. Okay. All right, so now you see that I have lines going vertically through my page. My spaces are divided into 14 squares. And now I'm going to turn it and I'm going to create the same size marks, but this time along the other edge. This is the 5 inch side, and I'm going to make marks every 1/2 inch. Again, because I want my squares to be equal. And I'm going to make those along this side, and there should be 10 spaces this time. Okay, and then I'm going to slide my ruler down. Always make sure that you're measuring from the same spot, like from the left side of the picture if that's where you started, and I'm going to make those marks again. Sometimes it's a little tricky to see your marks over the top of the picture, so just be careful when you go to draw your lines. Make sure that you can see your marks. It's important to be careful in these steps so you don't make mistakes and have uneven lines. It's okay to draw fairly dark on the image so you can see your lines clearly. All right, so now I have a nice even 1/2 inch grid over my entire paper. That means that I have 14 squares along across this way, and I have 10 squares across this way. So what I need to do is I need to get the same grid onto my big paper. And this big paper is twice as large as my photograph. You notice that I've already created a 1 inch border on each side. That's really important because the space inside here is exactly 10 by 14, which is double a 5x7. This also gives me some space in which I can label my grid so that I can make sure that I'm following the right square each time. So I'm going to do the exact same process on this, where I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure my marks for my 14 squares. I need to make them 1 inch this time. We're enlarging it. We want to make sure that it's in proportion, and that means 1 inch squares are the size that I need to go. And if I do this, I should end up with exactly 14 squares, just the same number as I have on my image. And this time, the one thing you want to keep in mind is when you're making this grid, you want to make your lines a little bit lighter. Don't push so hard with your pencil, because if you have really dark lines, the grid is going to be difficult to erase later. And that's part of your assignment, is you're going to have to make sure that as you draw, you're going to be erasing that grid. So I'm going to use a little bit less pressure on my pencil this time. And I'm going to make all those lines across. All right, as you can see, I've created all my lines going this direction, and I've actually taken an eraser and gone back and just lightened them up a little bit. If you feel like your lines are too dark, you can go ahead with an eraser just a little bit to kind of make sure that they're not too dark, so it'll be easier to remove them later. And now I'm going to add these same size marks onto the other dimension, and this time, again, I'm making a mark at every inch, and I should have 10 spaces across this side. And I'm going to make my marks twice, again, so that my lines are going to be nice and straight and even. Make enough of a mark so you can see it. And then I'm going to go across, drawing lines between those 2 points. Again, drawing lightly so that you can erase it easily later. All right, as you can see, I have my grid all set up on my paper now. And the last thing to do is you need to create your coordinates, because if I want to try to draw a square in my picture here, I need to know exactly where I'm going to put it on my paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use numbers, and down the left side I'm going to label each square 1, 2, 3, 4. And I should have the exact same number of squares over on my paper, so I need to label in the exact same space with the same coordinates down the side here. And then across the top, so that I don't get confused, I'm going to use letters instead. So A, B, C, D, E, F. Now there should be 14. And I have the same number of letters, A through N on my paper. And at this point, you're ready to start drawing.